What is up, everybody? I'm back to talk about Vinland Saga once again. I'm sorry it took so long to get around to this review, but let's just get right into it and I'll leave the details for the end of the video. First and foremost, I do love the hardcover of these manga volumes. It's a 2-in-1. Just calling it book 2 review. I'm going to review the whole thing as one, but I just love the hardcover. I wish more manga would do this because it's absolutely great. I love how it looks. I love how it feels. Looks really good on the shelf. All that aside, so let's get right into it. Thorfinn wants to fuel that revenge inside of him to avenge his father, even though his father constantly preached that you have no enemies and a true warrior needs no sword. Those two lines just stuck with me so much. It's like they've been embedded into my heart, and basically that's kind of what made me really love the series to begin with. It's just those two lines spoken by Thors, because I feel it has such weight to it, such prominence, and things that people don't really think too deeply into, especially when you're a young boy, but even more so when you're a young boy that watched your father get killed right in front of your eyes, and now you have your surrogate father basically being the man that ordered his execution. So that's a little awkward to deal with, I'm sure. And Thorfinn is trying to make a choice here, right? He gets stuck into a kind of a rock and a hard place in the beginning of this volume, where he kind of washes up on shore after a battle. He's still a young boy. I don't think it's quite as far into the time skip as it is a little bit later on, but he's a little bit younger. He's like in between being a 5-6-year-old and not quite like into his teens. So he's probably like 10, 11 here. At least that's what I'm assuming. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments below, but he washes up on shore, and what I love about this is that these two women basically kind of take him in and, you know, heal up his wounds, give him a place to sleep, give him some food and whatnot. And he basically has the chance here to fully escape being in Askeladd's presence, you know? Even though he chose to follow Askeladd, stow away on his boat, and then become a member of his band in order to kill him, you know, it's not exactly like they were keeping him captive. You know, they kind of are, but he's also there by his own will. It's a lot of complex emotions going on. But the idea behind this is that now he's away from them, and, you know, back then you're dealing with like the Viking age and whatnot, so it's not like you can just get on a computer and find somebody. It's not like you could just text somebody or call somebody. When you're separated from your clan, your group of people, you know, your friends, your family, whatever, you're separated, and you either have to find a way to get back to them, or, you know, you might be out of contact with them forever. And so he's with this woman who even vouches for his existence there, saying that he's her son, you know, so that he would be safe when an officer comes around. And so I just felt so deeply for this moment, because Thorfinn has this chance to escape. He has a chance to either start a life here, or maybe these nice people that took him in could help him find a way to get back to Iceland to his actual family. He has this choice to make. And he thinks about it, and it's not like directly stated. Like, you don't see thought bubbles or thought balloons of Thorfinn thinking like, wow, I could do this. You see it in his eyes. You see it when he sees the kindness that the woman is giving to him. You see all of these things just kind of going through just the way he's drawn, just his eyes and his emotion, seeing this moment. But ultimately, he decides that he needs to get back to Askeladd. He needs to be with that group so that he could choose the path of vengeance. And this is a grave mistake that Thorfinn makes, though it's completely understandable given, one, his age and his traumatic circumstances. And I definitely felt for him in this moment, because he feels like there's nothing else that he can do. It's like, I need to get back there to avenge my father, right? And so he sets fire to the woman's house, and then the look that she gives him is just like absolutely heartbreaking. I don't know if I can find it real quick, but this moment to me, I couldn't, I don't know, where is it? It's like right here. Yeah, like this moment right here. The look on her face, that heartbreaking look of realization that this little boy has now brought this mercenary band of Vikings to her shores, you know, burning down her house and all of these things. He burned the house in order to signal Askeladd, obviously, to come to the shore and get him. But I just, man, it's just heart-wrenching. It's just like, wow, like this is what he's decided to do. You know, he's made his choice. Basically, the universe gave him an opportunity here, and he had to make a choice, and that was the choice that he made. which I think also leads into a lot of the decisions he makes later on in this volume, or a lot of the lack of decisions, if you will. You know, there's moments where he's with this mercenary band and he sees the horrible things that they're doing, whether it's murdering, you know, the group of villagers at the end of this volume, or if it's, you know, going to sexually assault a woman in a barn. Like, he just turns a blind eye to all of it. I mean, obviously you can't be the hero and try to defeat everybody in the band because there's, you know, hundreds of them and one of you, so it's not like he would ultimately win the battle against everybody, go on a tirade of heroism, but he's not on a tirade of heroism. He's not looking to be a hero. He's looking for one thing and one thing only, and that is vengeance. And it's tearing him apart inside. It's tearing apart who he is as a person, and it's tearing apart his morality, the fact that he can turn a blind eye to all these things, the fact that he can continue to be with this band, to fight for this band, to be a part of them. And he keeps using the excuse of like, well, I'm gonna you know, continue to do jobs for them so that Askeladd agrees to a duel with me, you know, he'll give me my reward, and then once I kill him, it's all over with. But it's been going on for so long now, and despite how abrasive Thorfinn is to Askeladd, I still feel like there is a connection there, a Stockholm Syndrome kind of condition where he does kind of look to him as a surrogate father. And I know that might be a little bit controversial, maybe not, I don't really know, because I haven't looked up anything into Vinland Saga going further. The only thing is I have started watching the anime. I couldn't help myself. I watched the first couple episodes and it was so good I had to keep going, so I'm going to spoil myself for the manga because I'm probably going to keep watching the anime, but if anything, it'll just help me have a more well-rounded perspective as to all the things going on. And I feel from Askeladd, too, that he does kind of see Thorfinn in a different light than he sees the rest of his people, because, once again, moving on in this volume, you find out that he really doesn't give a fuck about the Danes, which is the majority of people in his band, but when it comes to a few people, Thorfinn especially, actually, probably Thorfinn the most. I was going to say Bjorn also, but pretty much just Thorfinn. He kind of like turns a blind eye to things. Like when he's collecting everybody's weapons to go across this territory, you know, it's like we can't have our weapons on us because they won't trust us, so we have to, you know, give them up for now, we'll get them back later. But he lets Thorfinn keep his weapons. And I feel like it wasn't just because Thorfinn was like, no, screw off, I don't care. I think it was more so as he kind of does see Thorfinn as a child, as maybe his child in a way. Tell me if I'm completely off base on this, but that's kind of how I feel about it. And then we also have the scene where, you know, the sun is rising and Askeladd and Thorfinn are the only ones that are awake. They're up on the hilltop, and Askeladd's kind of talking to him as if he's a son, and Thorfinn's like, you know, you don't talk to me like this. I don't like you. I'm gonna fucking kill you, you know, whatever. And Askeladd's just like, yeah, you probably will someday. Like, he admits, he's like, you know what, I'm only going to get older, you're only going to get stronger, like, at some point, you're probably going to beat me. And just that, like, acceptance in Askeladd's, you know, kind of character and persona, that he's just okay with the fact that, like, yeah, probably someday you will. It's almost as if he wants Thorfinn to get his revenge. It's almost as if he's training Thorfinn to do all these missions, to do all these things for him so that Thorfinn gets stronger and then eventually takes him out. I mean, I don't know if that's really the case, but it feels like when it comes to Thorfinn, and maybe it's because of the underlying respect Askeladd had for Thor's, during that encounter that they had during that battle, that he kind of like portrays that back onto Thorfinn. Maybe I'm giving Askeladd way too much credit, because I admit he is an asshole, like, don't get me wrong, like, he's a complete dick. I'm just saying, when his relationship with Thorfinn, I feel like in his mind, in Askeladd's mind, he views it differently than his relationship with everybody else. That's all I'm going to say. So moving on, we also have the introduction of Thorkell. So many Thor's characters. Are those names just really common back then? I don't know. Also, I want to say that, like, I am not a history buff, especially when it comes to, like, this age, the Viking Age. There are a lot of things that I don't understand as far as, like, the accuracy or the historical references going on. I know the author puts a lot of emphasis into making it as historically accurate as he can, and he's not, like, screwing with history or, like, turning it into a fantasy or anything. And a good buddy of mine also that I've watched Vinland Saga with has also kind of been educating me a little bit more on the Viking era. as far as like Askeladd's armor being of like a Roman aesthetic, which I didn't pick up on at all. Maybe that's super obvious to some people, but I didn't really get that. But now that I understand that, and then you see some of Askeladd's backstory in this, it all makes kind of perfect sense to me. So forgive me if I'm not super on top of, you know, the timing, the years, or, you know, who's marching onto whose territory, or what country is fighting against what country. I'm basically taking the story as it's presented to me, like taking it more on like a character basis rather than like a historical basis. So if I get some things wrong in that aspect, I do apologize ahead of time. But one thing that I know we can all agree on is how badass Thorkell is. Okay, so he's this guy that's fighting for London who apparently knew Thor's back in the day. And he's just this giant motherfucker that's throwing these branches, like throwing these giant logs at people. He's chucking giant rocks at people. He's just this like, imagine this like 7 foot tall, almost just gigantic, massive dude that's just been in battle his whole life. Just completely skilled, warrior, focused, calm. Like, he has all the attributes that you would want. But he also, being, you know, of the Viking nature and history, also has this, like, primal, just, like, joy for battle. And so, like, he wants things to be challenging. He wants things to be interesting and intriguing. And then he comes face to face with Thorfinn. And through their battle, you know, he's fighting him barehanded. Thorfinn, of course, you know, he goes in and he gets shit done. He doesn't mess around. He doesn't, like, he just goes in for the kill to do what Askeladd told him in order to get his reward. Like, that's what Thorfinn is doing. You know, he's basically kind of erased all sense of personality from himself, and he's just like a murder machine on a quest of vengeance. And then when it comes to Thorkell, you know, he's enjoying things a lot more, and he's just fighting barehanded. He's just going like fisticuffs against him, and is impressed by Thorfinn. Like, wow, this little scrap is like really good. He gets 2 of his fingers cut off by Thorfinn. But he also allows himself to be stabbed through the hand so that he could grab Thorfinn's hand and basically like chuck him like a ragdoll, which I thought was awesome. Amazing. Very, very cool. Thorkell is a beast. And it got to the point where, like, Askeladd retreated. He was like, yeah, I don't think we can beat this guy. He's got the high ground, and we all know from Revenge of the Sith, if you have the high ground, that's the be-all, end-all. And so they're like, let's get the fuck out of here. So then we also have to talk about the new characters, Ragnar and Prince Canute, who are on the cover of this volume. And I, probably like many others, thought Prince Canute was a girl. But nope, he's just a very dainty man. And that's kind of the point of his character. He's very timid, very scared, very dainty, and he doesn't really understand what it is to be a leader of men. And then Askeladd sees this in him because Askeladd's group manages to rescue them. And why is he doing this? Well, Askeladd basically has his own kind of agenda where he wants to gain some sort of political power by doing this. Askeladd's ancestor, I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget, is a guy named Artorius, who apparently was the inspiration for the King Arthur legend, came from this guy Artorius. Again, I'm not good with the historical accuracy part, so forgive me if I'm getting some things wrong, but the idea behind it is that Artorius basically kidnapped and raped and kept a Danish woman for himself who wound up being Askeladd's mother. So Askeladd is Danish, but he also has this kind of like descendant of Roman heritage blood in his veins of Artorius. And so he kind of despises the Danes, even though that's who he's working for and who he's claimed himself to be this entire time. And so by helping Prince Canute get to where he needs to go, he's hoping that he can get close to like the political aspect of things and basically kind of have influence into the way the politics work. And this part kind of confused me about Askeladd as a character because from book 1, Askeladd had a great line where he was talking about, you know, everybody is a slave to something. Like Thorfinn is a slave to revenge, and then his cousin or whoever it was a slave to money, like, and then there's actual slaves. Like, everybody is a slave to something. And so I was always wondering, like, what is Askeladd a slave to? Perhaps Askeladd strives to be a slave to nothing because he's just so live in the moment, carefree, I don't give a fuck kind of a person. Take any job, whatever it is. But now Askeladd seems to have some sort of idea of a mission of something he wants to do. So is Askeladd a slave of his own hatred of Danes? Is he a slave to, you know, wanting to reclaim this ancient Roman power? Like, what is he a slave to is one thing I'm wondering. And also, where does this come from, this idea that now he wants to gain some sort of political power? Because I really saw him as a character that was just like a carefree, like, basically living life day at a time kind of a person. So I guess there's more complexity there to him than I was originally giving him credit for, though I really appreciated who his character was before this development. So I'm really curious to see where it goes forward from here. So as they're kind of escorting Prince Canute, I also like the comparison between Canute and Thorfinn, because they're the same age and they're both men, and you see that Thorfinn has just been through hell. He's been through absolute carnage, and he's been fighting and living in this kind of stewing negative energy, rage-inducing revenge tale. Whereas Prince Canute has pretty much kind of been pampered, and he has got a kind of a different. He's been, I don't want to say pampered, I guess, like, he's kept on the down low because he's trying not to make waves, and he's trying not to be killed, he's trying not to make wrong decisions, because he, as he states, he has political power in his words, so what he has to be very careful about what he says in all circumstances because of his political nature. But having said that, he's also very scared and intimidated and can't speak up. He's very stifled in his throat. He's got bad throat chakra, if you will. And I like to see in the comparison the nature versus nurture kind of thing when it comes to him and Thorfinn, because you see these two boys that have completely different upbringings. One, you know, as a prince, you know, never had to fight, never had to, you know, go through these horrible things, never had to see his father die right in front of him. And then you have Thorfinn, who's just been on this mission of vengeance, and Thorfinn will give it right to the prince. Like, he doesn't even care. Like, he'll say anything to him. He's not careful about what he says at all. He lets it all slip. He's just like, lets anything out that is on his mind. And I really like the comparison between those two. So with Prince Canute and Ragnar, there's also a priest. And a lot of the themes of religion kind of come up here too, or at least the comparison between Christianity and the gods of the Vikings, right? And I like the scene where the Vikings were like, our gods are better. Like, I saw an image of Jesus. He looks so weak and puny, he couldn't even swing an axe, you know, like, because they base everything on battle and war, you know? They base everything on, you know, dying and going to Valhalla, an honorable warrior's death, right? That's where it all comes from. It's a religion based in a battle, and also, you know, all religion wants to give you an ease or a peace of mind when it comes to death. They all do it in their own way. They basically try to make death look like it's okay, you know? It's basically kind of ease our consciousness from it. And the old gods of the Vikings are basically saying, you know, if you die in battle, it's okay, because then you get to go to Valhalla, you know, just the same as the Christians are like, well, as long as you pray and you die, it's okay, because you can go to heaven. Like, they're always, you know, putting some kind of acceptance on death, you know, laying the groundwork in somebody's mind. And so I like the comparison between the two. And I also like how when the Vikings are talking about the stories that they've gone through, and they mentioned Thor's, and they mentioned to the priest that Thor said that a true warrior needs no sword, bringing it back to that, the priest was very interested. He was very engaged, because I feel like that line has some kind of weight as far as the things that Jesus spoke of, right? Because Jesus was not a fighter. He was a man of peace. He was a leader, a guy that, you know, would agree that a true warrior needs no sword. You know, you need love and compassion and acceptance and understanding and all these things that Jesus stands for, right? And so the priest, hearing that a man said, like a human being, a warrior, said that a true warrior needs no sword, he gets like super invested and interested, which I thought was great. And so to end this, as to not make this review too long, the ending of this volume dealt with Askeladd's group going through a snowstorm, a blizzard, realizing that he underestimated the weather of where they're marching through, and that they're not going to have enough food and whatnot to make it through the winter, until they stumble upon a village, coincidentally a village of Christians. And what they do is steal all the food from them, and then say, don't worry, we're not going to let you guys suffer through starvation, we're just going to kill you now. And just oh my God, like as soon as you start to really like this is what Vinland Saga does. It was what it does so great. It's what many stories do very great. Is they let you understand their villainous characters, their antagonists, let you kind of like get involved with them, let you appreciate them to an extent, and then they remind you that this guy's a fucking asshole. And Askeladd has all of these innocent people murdered so that they could steal their food, and it's not even enough food to last the entire winter that they need to make it through. There's a new character introduced. I believe her name is Anne or Anna or something like that. And she was part of the village, but she kind of hid away from the massacre and watched it happen. And she was like, you know, I can't believe people this evil actually exist. And you know, they were all Christians, and so she's wondering why, you know, all these good people that prayed and did all these things, you know, that were good, you know, all got massacred. And her, who she just stole a piece of jewelry from the marketplace not too long ago, and she was feeling bad about that. She's like, I don't want to go to hell. I'm scared of hell, because that's another thing. Religion pushes this kind of narrative that like makes you both fearful of being bad, like it pushes the fear inside of you, which is a negative aspect, I would say, for the most part. But you know, so she's like already dealing with this guilt and this anxiety and just this like, I don't want to go to hell, yada yada. She's scared, and her family she views as all good people, and yet her family are the ones that get killed. Because in this world, in the world of Vinland Saga, and what happened in real life, is a lot of the times it doesn't matter how good or how bad you are, life will just do whatever life does. Things keep moving, and sometimes karma does not play a part. As unfortunate as that is, the universe can be very uncaring, and as she finds out. So I don't know if she's going to go on to be a main character. I don't know if she's going to meet up with the group, and once again, you know, Thorfinn is there and basically allows all this to happen, and I feel like each time something horrible like this happens, he just falls further and further away from his own humanity, if you will. So it ends on a very depressing note. However, I really, really enjoyed this volume. So that's where that volume ends, and I'm a little bit past that part in the anime. So depending on how quickly I make it through the anime, I might finish that before I get to the next book. I'm not really sure, but I am definitely looking forward to continuing this series because I really, really like where this is heading. And so I'm very curious as to see what's going to happen. There's a lot of, there's starting to be a lot of moving pieces on the board, which is what I like. So tell me what you guys thought of Vinland Saga Book 2, or at least, you know, if you're watching the anime, what you think about it so far, what you thought of it. Leave some comments down below about all the themes and ideas discussed in this. Again, I'm sorry I don't know the historical accuracy that well, but I'm doing my best that I can with the story that's presented to me. So thanks a lot, guys. Please like this video. Give it a thumbs up if you would. Share it if you want to. All that fun stuff. Subscribe if you want to stick around. I do manga reviews and analysis, and I talk about other stuff, and, you know, standard YouTuber spiel, I suppose. Also got more reviews coming in the future. Going to do more Vagabond, and I'm going to get back to Attack on Titan. And I'm going to start some other ones too, because there's so much to read. There's so much wonder in the world. There's so much greatness. And we can all come together and just enjoy it as fans, because that's what this channel is all about. Positivity, enjoyment, and talking about the things that we love. So thanks for being here, guys, and I'll talk to you next time.